Welcome to the Richard Sherman Podcast. Hit that sub button if you're new. We're here to give you great NFL content, game recaps, player interviews, and stories from around the league. Please tune in.
Let's start with San Francisco because their defense looked like San Francisco defense. Richard, I'm more curious about your thoughts here because the name of the game today was defense for the San Francisco 49ers. Your thoughts, my friend?
Yeah, they played phenomenal. The pass rush was back, and you were getting it from everywhere. Malik Collins was putting pressure. He played a phenomenal game. He has been an impact player throughout the beginning of the season. He's been a great addition. Kevin Givens had his best game as a pro, 2.5 sacks. Nicholas John Bosa, all day, he was chomping at the bits. All day, he was just inches away from getting a sack forced fumble on Jacoby Brissett. And finally, near the end of the game, he gets home, gets a sack, forced fumble, recovers the fumble. And you could see him looking up, Mitchell. You could see Nicholas John Bosa saying, thank God, finally, all this hard work is paying off, because he was working. And it wasn't from lack of effort. He was working. Frederico, all-pro Fred Warner, another interception, a game-breaking play, scored. The offense got 2 trips into the red zone, stalled out both times, settled for field goals. But what does Frederico do? He says, you guys need points? Throw it to me, Jacoby, real quick. Throw it to me. Got it. Gets up, runs it in, dives in, pick 6. Has to be the front runner for Defensive Player of the Year. There are people saying it should be TJ Watt, and I was one of those people. TJ Watt has kind of slowed down as the season has progressed. He only has 3 sacks on the season. He probably has 4 or 5 that have been negated by penalties, whether it's pass interference or holding or something else on somebody else on his team, but still having a phenomenal season. But Fred, right now, it's hard to beat. He has 1 sack, 3 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions, and a pick 6, along with a number of tackles and just being an overall menace every single week that a team has to game plan for. I think he gets the nod. Another really good game for Jawan Jennings, who was surprisingly the highest targeted guy on the football field after his huge performance last week versus the Rams in that loss. Had 6 targets today, 3 catches for 88 yards. Deebo Samuel, that big post got him on the board, 3 catches, 58 yards. Jordan Mason, man, another really productive day. Can't say enough about him. He deserves to be a starting running back in the league somewhere. It's just not going to be here when Christian McCaffrey comes back. They're kind of receiving good news, going to test it out next week and see what he can do. What I got to say about that, Mitchell, that's all. Everybody, patience is a virtue. All Niner fans, Niner faithful, patience is a virtue. Don't sit here and get all tight trying to figure out when Christian's coming back. Be patient. I guarantee you, he's not trying to milk this. He's not trying to, oh man, I'm just here for the money. He's one of the hardest working players in the National Football League. If he can play, he will be out on that football field. If he's not on that football field, it's because he can't play right now. And the Achilles injury is one of those that is so touch and go every week. Coming from experience, I'm speaking from experience, both rupturing my Achilles and having the Achilles tendonitis on the other ankle with haggling deformity and all this other stuff, and having to go to specialists and get PRPs injected, cortisone shots injected into my heel because you can't put it in a tendon. You can't. It'll rupture your tendon. That's one thing you should know. Everybody's like, man, why can't you just put a shot? You cannot put a cortisone shot into the Achilles tendon. It'll rupture. It'll weaken it and rupture it. So there's not a lot of blood circulation there. So that's why you get PRP injections to help the healing process start and get some white blood cells in there, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes you go stem cell route. I'm not sure. I wasn't with Christian when he went to get these procedures. Those were just things I did. Got dry needling. You try everything. When I ruptured my Achilles, I was to the point, Mitchell, it was in so much pain, and they kept saying, oh, it won't rupture, it won't rupture. I was putting lidocaine patches and taping them around them so they would stay in the spot. And that's how I was playing through the season that year before it ruptured, because it was like, man, it's so much pain, but I'm just trying to get through these games and help my team win. And so,
Well, Richard, I want to stop right there because this is a story I think that needs to be told. I mean, you and I go way back. I mean, 10,
four
12
flats on a
years now.
Cadillac.
Yeah, we go way, way, way back. And to deal with and to experience it on my side of the fence and know the pain you were going through and knowing that essentially what you were told, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, was, hey, you can sit out, but you're going to have to sit out the bulk of the season, or you can play this thing out and eventually it's going to rupture. And Richard, when you went down in Arizona in that Thursday night football game, I knew. I mean, you were a warrior and walked off the field, but I knew darn well what happened, and I know you knew. I mean, it just goes to show you the guttiness that you played with as a professional. And Richard, you can speak from experience to these calf strains and Achilles tendonitis and any issue. This is a severe issue. So to rush Christian McCaffrey back right now, I mean, you're the better man to speak about it.
It's not.
It makes no sense right now.
It's not worth it. And they're playing it as correctly as they can. From the 49ers perspective, they're taking their time, allowing him to go get the treatments that he can get. Because even if, no matter how tough you want to be, you got to be tougher than your brain. And you got to send signals to your brain that you're okay when your brain's telling you, hey, there's a flat tire. There's a flat tire. Hey, no matter what I do, my brain's telling me there's a flat tire. So even if I want to keep driving my car, hey, your tire's flat. You're just gonna keep hearing that do-do-do, do-do-do, do-do-do. And Christian McCaffrey is a high functioning athlete. You can't play at the speed, you can't play to the standard you want to play until that flat tire is fixed. And so he'll do everything he can, get back right. Hopefully he's back by November. I think that's the timeline they're putting on him. Every single one is different. So if you're hearing from an expert, oh, he can be back here or he won't be back till here, they don't know. They really don't know because nobody knows but Christian McCaffrey and his body, because he may wake up tomorrow and feel really, really good and be able to do some sprints. And then he may wake up the next day, feeling really, really good and be able to sprint again. And then the third day he may wake up and can barely walk. And that's just how crazy this injury and the flare-ups are. And so you have to manage it however you can manage it. And so you're going to hear, good things some days, and then you're going to hear things, maybe there's a setback. Don't be discouraged. When he can play, he will play. But this 49ers defense this week is our Uber Eats almost perfect defense. This segment is brought to you by Uber Eats, where we highlight the NFL defense that put on the week's most dominating performance with the 6 sacks of Jacoby Brissett, the interception, Frederico's pick 6, the chaos brought on by that D-line and Nicholas John Bosa's forced fumble and fumble recovery, and holding Jacoby Brissett relatively in check. I mean, he got beat up. He was limping off the field by the end of this game, Mitchell. He's going to sit in a hot tub and cold tub for a couple of days. This is not a game he will soon forget. And that's why the San Francisco 49ers are this week's Uber Eats almost perfect defense. Remember, you can order almost anything you want with Uber Eats, the official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Next week, Mitchell, they got the Arizona Cardinals, who just got beat down by the Washington Commanders. I think that could be another game they could feel good about, but Kyler Murray in this chaos, I just always hold my breath.
It's a division foe, my friend. But Richard, before we leave this game, let's talk a little bit about the offense. They got George Kittle back. Huge catch in the corner of the end zone. He just outjumped three defenders for that ball. He wanted it more. It's got to feel good for Brock Purdy to have him back. Richard, this game I saw with Brock Purdy, statistically not the best game, 15 for 27, 288, a touchdown and interception, but goodness, he extends plays. I mean, he's so slippery in that pocket and evades, defenders. I mean, there was Jabril Peppers had a surefire sack on him all day. He slipped out of that. Richard, Brock Purdy impressed me today, despite his numbers not being the best, but it's got to feel good for him having George Kittle back, having Deebo Samuel back. And like you said, third and Juwan Jennings really took advantage of this offseason and these injuries early in the season. And he looks like another go-to guy. When they get Ricky Purcell back and Juwan Jennings going, I mean, and they get healthy, the 49ers are going to be the 49ers again. The faithful, you guys can rest assured, coming from a Detroit Lion fan, this team is here still. But, Richard, I got to correct you on one thing before we leave this game. You said the defensive player of the year front runner right now is Frederico. Did you forget about my boy, Aiden Hutchinson, leading the league in sacks? Richard, he's going to show tomorrow night against your Seattle Seahawks who the real defensive player of the year is. We'll see. But that's Mitchell, I'm calling it right now.
I don't know how it'll look because we got a couple games to play, but it looks like Brock Purdy may be leading the league in yardage right now. And just some of the passes, because they're like, every time there's something new that they say about him. Every week is something new. It's like, well, he played great, but they lost. Or he just threw it to Deebo and Ayuk, and then they had so much yak. But then he's second in the league in yards and has the least amount of yak in the league. And they're like, well, it's because Kyle Shanahan. It's like, well, I'm going to let you know something. When you got to work this hard, one way or the other, if you got to work this hard to prove a point about a player, like with Brock Purdy, I could just say, hey, he's number one in just about every measurable stat. I don't really have to work that hard. I can just go to stats, close my eyes, pick one, he's probably near the top. When you talk about that, and there's other quarterbacks, you got to sit there and say, he's a generational talent. And it's because of the offense. It's because the coach. It's because he doesn't have this. It's because somebody was injured. It's because over here. Well, he was born over here. He was born on the 23rd of January and not the 24th. If he was born on the 24th, he would have. I get it. I get it. Brock Purdy's elite. And he continues to play that way, and he continues to do it with other guys. So when Ricky Purcell comes back, it's just so many mouths to feed on this offense. So you forget about guys like George Kittle. He makes an incredible play over three guys. Like for that, he's an all-pro player. That's not really that surprising when it's him, because you know the quality of player he is. But he gets kind of lost in his offense. So sometimes because you got Christian doing the work he has, and because Deebo is making these plays, or BA is making these plays, or Juwan has the game he had last week, or are you waiting for Ricky Purcell, the first-round pick, to suit up? There's so much talent and weapons on this offense. This offensive line has been much maligned outside of Trent Williams. Pooney has done phenomenal, has been phenomenal at the right guard position coming into the season. Colton McKivitz, less than desirable at times, played a solid game this week and deserves some credit for that. And when they don't play solid and when they don't hold up well, Brock Purdy does a great job avoiding those sacks. Hey, when they get beat early, Brock Purdy, hey, dances around, boom, boom, maneuvers, gets in the pocket. He does not get enough credit for that. I'm sure he gets credit from them and gets credit in that offensive line room and from Forrester, the offensive line coach, where he's like, hey, Brock, appreciate you. You're taking a lot of these plays or negative plays off my offensive line. Trent Williams deserves credit for playing through injury. I know sometimes fans get emotionally hijacked when players are demanding more money or sitting out or things like that. Try not to. Try your best not to. It's not just like when the team makes decisions. It's business. It's business. You gotta get the most while you can get it. He's at the top of his position at a really late stage in his career, trying to get as much as he can. I guarantee you this. There were times Trent Williams could have sat out and not played. And this was in the COVID year when we were in Arizona. And I'll never forget this. Trent was beat up. He was hurt. And he could barely walk. He could barely, he's in the training room every day. And he probably could have sat the season out and been fine. Like, we weren't really playing for anything. There's no real reason for you to go out there. But he's the kind of pro that says, hey, I don't care about the money. I don't care about that. I'm out there for my teammates. If I can go, if I'm healthy enough to step on that field, I'm going to go. So if he's healthy enough to go, I promise you he deserves the money he's getting. Please take your negative energy towards him away and throw it away somewhere, because one of the best players in football, and he was opening up colossal gaps this week for Jordan Mason to run through, and he's going to continue to protect Brock Purdy's blind side. you got to work through the kinks in the season. For him to come off the streets and start an NFL game at left tackle and play a relatively solid game. Obviously the standard for him is so high that it's impossible to live up to sometimes, but he is a generational, out of this world, insane player. There's not very many players that could come off their couch and no matter how hard you're working out and play an NFL game that week that counts and say, hey, he looks pretty good. Like, you'll take that every time, and they'll continue to get better. And I think I heard they're working Spencer Buford at right tackle, so they can just have more depth and just trust the process. You got to trust the process with these guys. Trust your quarterback. Brock Purdy's making good decisions, getting the ball out, knowing where the pressure is coming from. I think this team's going to be fine, and you got to celebrate the victories while they're there.